CALS got started, I think, shortly after your tenure at Rogers State, maybe just after you'd moved on to Northwest Missouri State. We hosted that first CALS in Tulsa. Just talk about, from your perspective, the influence that Will has had on you and the industry, and the way that you've been able to watch the CALS grow from its humble beginnings in 2011, 2012 to what it is today.
Well, I smile a little bit because every year are we 14, 15 years in, however long it's been? I think I'm the only person at this point who's never missed one. I've tried to make sure, and I love industry events and seeing people, but also the connection I have with Will makes it to where that's always a priority, is to get there. But, every year I gripe to Will about how I wish it was small like it used to be. But it did. It started with, I don't know, that first year was 30, 35 people. And it's just grown. I mean, really, Will initially started it just to have a place for people to network and get to know each other, and something that was different than NACTA. NACTA's great. Lots of people get growth and development there, but it's become really large. It's become a really special community and a unique place where people really know each other. And I just always feel uplifted when I go there, and what Will's been able to do in the family atmosphere, the way everybody knows his family and loves his family, especially Forrest. That's really special, and it just is a huge credit to him.
You said a few moments ago, tongue-in-cheek, I think, that you owe everything to Will Reese and CALS. The opposite may actually be true. Let's talk about CALS. Will has told the origin story many times, and how CALS would not exist without you and your support in those early days at Tulsa. But not many people have had the opportunity to hear it from your point of view. So I'll ask you, what do you remember about how CALS got started, and what has it meant to you to see how it's grown over the last 15 years?
Well, my recollection hopefully is the same as Will's. Will's was our director of operations, director of basketball operations, and he decided to get out of that, and he got in to be an agent for basketball coaches, assistant coaches, and Division II and Division III coaches, which is the group he knew really well. And he thought, boy, if I could connect them with some associate ADs in the industry, they may become ADs, or they'd be ADs at Division II and III. They could hire some of my clients for these basketball jobs. And he said, I'd like to put together a group where we can bring these groups together. And I thought it's a great idea. I think the concept was really good. And, he's living in Tulsa. He'd been on our staff, and he asked if I would host it. And I said, sure, that'd be great. And so he brought those folks together. And ironically, the first weekend that this is going to happen, I'm interviewing here at North Carolina. So I'm here on, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then I fly back on Saturday, and this event starts on Sunday. And there he is. He says, see, it's already working. You've already got a new job out of this. So that was the genesis of it. And it was a great idea. And exactly as he projected, that some of those Division II or III guys or associate ADs became ADs. His assistant coaches or coaches at the lower level became head coaches at higher level, and that continued to build upon itself. And I give him a ton of credit for growing that thing and staying with it, moving it around. I think professional development, moving it to different cities, keeping it fresh, keeping it narrow. I mean, his creativity and his thought and his passion behind it is extraordinary. So I do credit it a lot to him, because he was thinking about professional development. He was thinking about connections. He was thinking about relationships, and all of that has worked exceptionally well. And it was a great idea, and I'm so happy for him that he made it happen, and he continues to do it, because it helps an awful lot of people.
I want to ask you about CALS, because you've been involved for a long time. You've made it a point to attend and to be on the faculty. What is it about CALS that has drawn you back year after year? Why does it matter? Why do you continue to invest your time and resources in being a part of it?
Yeah, I think it goes back to a lot of the things we've talked about. People matter, relationships matter. I think in our industry, the more we can gather, the more we can, really set the table and have common interests come together. I think CALS does that. I think the first one I went to was I was at Ole Miss, University of Memphis. I think hosted it there at the Peabody, and I think people they trust Will, and they trust what he brings to the table. And look, I'm a NACTA guy. I grew up in the NACTA world. My first convention was 1997. I was on the NAD board. I was president of NACTA. But I do think, this lifts our industry by having a group like CALS, especially with Will's trust and leadership. And so I always enjoy it. Again, it's high-level conversations. It's bite-sized nuggets of the panels and the sessions. And then you get the great hallway conversations and the great social activity. Again, our industry, is somewhat splintered right now, right? I mean, each conference kind of has their agenda. And so the more we can bring people together, I think is a powerful tool. And then we take those things back to our campuses. So we're proud to host it here at Ohio State.
All right, we're just a little over a month away from CALS 2024, which will be hosted by the University of Arkansas, October 6th through the 8th. With everything you have going and one of the busiest times of year for any college athletic director, why was it important for you to partner with our good friend Will Reese and to bring this event to Fayetteville?
Ryan, I've been in this business now for 32 years, and as I was coming up as a young intern, assistant director of marketing, there's so many people that poured into me, that were mentors for me, that taught me things about this profession, allowed me to grow within this profession. And that's what Will and CALS is all about, is connecting the next generation of leaders in college athletics. And I feel like that's part of my responsibility as an athletic director at the University of Arkansas in the Southeastern Conference, is to help develop tomorrow's leaders in our industry. And so Will and I have developed a friendship through CALS, and I've been a constant faculty member for Will. I think it's one of the best kind of professional development events in our industry.
And I'd be remiss if we didn't take a trip down memory lane. As I mentioned at the top of our conversation, I've had the good fortune of knowing you both for a really long time and watching your careers progress. And it's been amazing to see what you both accomplished. Our friendships, in large part, were formed due to our mutual engagement with CALS and with Will Reese. So I'd love to hear from you both talking about CALS and Will and what that event and organization has meant to you on a personal and professional level over the years.
Yep. Well, for me, I always refer to Will. It's Forrest's son. Forrest is the real MVP of the family. I got to know Will back at Norman High School when he was a basketball coach. I've known Will for a long time. And, coming into the business, you don't know what you don't know, but you do figure out really quickly it's about building relationships and meaningful relationships. You're not going to have great relationships with everybody, but, getting to know you, Ryan, and clicking with Graham right away, and kind of our cohort of people in the industry coming up just made it natural. Like, there's challenges everywhere, every role, whether you're starting off or you're an executive style role, there's a lot of challenges. So have like-minded people that you could bounce things off of, the good stuff and the challenging stuff. And I look at it more so it's so much deeper than just colleagues. I consider Graham not only just in our business, a dear friend, know his family well, and vice versa. So I think that's one of the things that CALS really allows for, is you get to know people, you get to learn, you get to grow, all those things. But everything that we do is about people. And that's one of the things I've always loved about CALS.
Well, and Will, how he structures the culture of CALS really, facilitates that. The family feel, the invite kind of only, or like the referral process to be able to come to CALS, so to speak. And now, gosh, Ryan, 15 years? What CALS, is it 15 plus or minus? And so, so that's really, it's taken on a life of its own, like in a great way, and how it's continued to mature. And then I will plug even though Will didn't suggest, but I'll plug and encourage, right, the CALS 360s or the CALS one days, this podcast, which I'm sure dozens are going to watch because, Zach and I are the headlines. Those are all like little deposits of like more of the relational connectivity and getting to know somebody just in a different manner than, the NACTA 5 days, which is great, right? We're all NACTA and we've all come up that way too. But like the complement of CALS in a really different cultural relational way, it's kind of, it when you see it kind of thing. And that's something that you talk about, but just the encouragement to come to know it and see it, because it is so different and such a complement to a lot of the different opportunities that we do have within the industry.
You've had a long history in association with CALS. You hosted CALS when it was one of the first professional development events to gather in person coming out of the pandemic in New Orleans. What has your experience with CALS been like over time, and how important are organizations and events like CALS to bringing up the next group of athletic leaders?
Well, I go back when I was the AD at Northern Iowa. One of my staff members wanted to go to this thing called CALS, and I didn't know anything about it. It was in North Carolina at the time. I think Bubba was hosting it. And he came back from it, and I said, how was it? And he says, it was the best thing I've ever been to. And so the next year, I was asked to go and be on some panel, and I went. And I every session that I sat in, I learned something. And that wasn't the case in a lot of the other professional development things I'd been to. A lot of them were more social opportunities than they were actually growth opportunities. And every year, the one thing I insist I will never miss is CALS. My dates are blocked out for this year. They're going to be blocked out for next year. I just won't miss it. I only go to one professional development thing a year now. And it's CALS. And it's because of a couple of things. One, there's social and there's network. People aren't there to find another job. People are there to learn. And a lot of the friends I've got in the business, I met through CALS. I consider Wren Baker one of my best friends, but my relationship with him came and was fostered at CALS. I've had some most fun times in my professional career at CALS. But there are people who talk about mentors from the conference, mentors now that I still go back to because I heard them say something or I sat on a panel with them at CALS. And we still go back and talk about things that come up today. So, there's I suppose there's lots of sodas you can drink. You drink the one that tastes the best for you. But, we don't have a lot of time to waste. And your time, like I would tell you, probably personally, my bandwidth is about as stretched as it's ever been currently. So you have to really pick and choose wisely as to what you do and where you want to spend your time. I have not been to the one days yet. I know they're extraordinarily valuable as well. But for me, getting to CALS and being able to listen to everybody else, because it's practitioners who are up there that have done it and they're talking about it. And I also think CALS has done a really good job of who they selected and put up there. They're people who have established credibility in the business, and whose voices, I think, when you walk in, you should listen.
I want to talk to you a little bit about CALS. This is the CALS podcast. We had the pleasure of having you serve as our opening night speaker at CALS 2022 in Nashville. A very memorable conversation between you and Candace Lee, the athletic director at Vanderbilt. Looking back on that, what are your memories from that conversation with Candace, your impressions of CALS, and the importance of events like CALS for industry professionals?
I had never been invited to attend CALS until that moment, and so I didn't know what to expect. So the first was not knowing what to expect. I think the encouraging point for me was the next step leaders, if you will. So those who are in leadership positions poised to take that next step. That's why I use that phrase. coming together with people kind of in the end of hallway positions for some conversation, for some thinking time. And I think one of the threats, given the level of activity and intensity in college athletics, is we all lose time to think and time to prepare and time to reflect on our direction. And so I thought first that was a great opportunity. Second, Will sent me a photo of Candace and I on stage during the interview. And I remember walking up on the stage, and he had this window into the city behind us. And it was a beautiful night and just a spectacular view. And it was a wow moment. And so when I opened the photo, there was this photo of Candace and I on the stage where I'm answering, she's asking the questions, I'm trying to answer them, in that backdrop of the city. And it's actually in my hallway. I walk by it every day. It hangs on the wall. And I think what you see in the photo is a relationship that was built between Candace and myself. I grew up in upstate New York. She spent a lot of time in Huntsville, Alabama. She went to Vanderbilt. I'm a Cortland State graduate. I showed up here as an associate commissioner early in her career, and we've worked together now for over 20 years in a variety of different capacities. I don't think either of us would have kind of penciled out that chronology of our relationship. We've had laughs and we've had hard moments, and it was just a rewarding conversation. I think what you saw, what I remember, is that relationship playing out in the back and forth. And I think that photo that I mentioned shows that as well. So there's a beautiful skyline, a great setting, hundreds of people listening, but a familiarity and a relaxation between two friends that have a long-time relationship, having a little bit of fun and trying to provide some perspective. Those are my takeaways. And that may be a little bit too internal for me, but that's what was happening. And it was a really special evening in my view.
I would agree. And speaking with lots of folks that have been to many CALS throughout the years, it certainly sticks out as one of the more memorable events and conversations that we've had an opportunity to listen to. So we again appreciate your willingness to engage with CALS and the CALS community. All right, it's no secret.
I'll give you one more note. Like one of the lessons for me in this role, and it was in, I think, 2017. So I was a year and a half in as commissioner. I went to a press conference, and I realized that I would go to these press conferences, and we had a particularly bad day around that press conference. Kind of big picture, some decisions have been made, some personnel changes. And I was asked anything and everything: hurricane disruption, committee on infractions decisions, personnel changes. It was a hard 45 minutes. I came back to our next full staff meeting. I said, you know what? I realized everybody else has permission to ask me anything. And so we actually have on our staff meeting, whenever we get together, an Ask Greg Anything section where I said, you know what? You have permission to ask me anything. I may not answer, but you can ask. And I generally do answer. And I'll go back to that night. I remember one of the preparatory conversations was, hey, you'd like to go through questions. I'm like, just ask what you're going to ask, and I'll do my best to answer. And so that was part of the enjoyment for me was, hey, I don't know what's going to come out from a question standpoint, and we'll see how those answers might be shaped.
Professional development opportunities like CALS continue to grow in importance as this crazy landscape evolves. You mentioned Will Reese earlier, the founder of CALS. From your perspective, what do events like CALS play in preparing the next generation of leaders?
CALS is so important. I love CALS, and I'm always very privileged and humbled when I'm asked to speak at CALS. And I love it selfishly because it forces me to think a little bit differently. Whenever you're going to teach something, you have to get a little bit better. But it also allows me to see the incredible talent coming up. And there is so much talent out there. It makes me so proud. But then I also love the opportunity to communicate with my colleagues and with people coming up that pipeline and learn from them. And that's what CALS can do. It allows you to connect with people and develop authentic relationships that will serve you so incredibly well Like we've talked about how challenging this industry is, and it is, but it's the relationships that sustain us. It's the relationships that inspire us. So going to CALS enables you to forge those important relationships. Maybe you'll pick up a nugget or two from a speaker, or maybe someone will paint a picture for you. But CALS is critically important, and it's done. There's a lot of professional development opportunities out there that are great, but CALS is very much like Will Reese, and it has a true heart.
One of those connection points for many of the relationships that you mentioned has been CALS. And you are one of the OG CALS contributors. So you were in the room in 2011 at the very first CALS in Tulsa. So what are some of your memories from that first CALS, and what role has CALS played in your professional development and some of the relationships you've been able to build over the last 10 or 15 years?
Yeah, I remember it very well, going to Tulsa, quite frankly, not really knowing what it was. There was a relationship with Will Reese prior to that first CALS, but it really was just him begging probably a handful of people to come, but understanding the concept that this was about as you're in the chair. And I think it, if I remember correctly, started kind of with a conversation with Bubba and some others. Bubba at the time was at Tulsa, where it's like, hey, as I'm now in the chair, it's harder for me to understand that next generation of leadership, whether it's a marketing person or someone to run fundraising or compliance. How I get a concentrated group of people in there that we can create meaningful contact points. And so that was the premise of it. Went to Tulsa, and I do remember that being a separator from other conferences or experiences that I had gone to before, where you were put into an intentional situation where you got to meet other people in different capacities and roles in different processes along their career development. And so you walk away with, man, I had a great impression of this individual. And what might happen, and this is the way of CALS, right? I've had a senior associate AD that just left. I call Will and I call three other people, and they're telling me about people over the last year or two that they've met at CALS that might fit this role. And so it becomes a great source of prospecting for opportunities that I'm not tied in as much as I used to be in those areas, because the world continues to evolve. I get older and they stay the same age. And so, I think it's an opportunity for people to really recognize there's an intentionality about development and growth and connectivity that doesn't exist fully at every other event. I've been to however many it's been now. I've been to all of them, and it's great to see the growth and how it's blossomed into something that's really a staple in our industry. That as other networking events have maybe come and gone or modified, CALS continues to grow and evolve into something that's different each and every year.
Yeah, we've invited you to come and be a part of our CALS 360 events for the last few years in Atlanta, where we spent about a day and a half with deputy ADs. And then this past fall, we asked you to come and be our Monday morning keynote at CALS 24 in Northwest Arkansas. So I'd love to hear more about your impressions and takeaways from your very first CALS experience.
Well, it's the only time in my life, might be the only time ever, that I follow the CEO of Walmart. So Doug McMillan spoke the night before, and I really am grateful that there was a significant night between, that everybody went to sleep, woke up, there was a new day, because he was fantastic. Hunter, is it Yurachek, the AD at Arkansas that interviewed him? They did a fantastic job. But yeah, waking up that morning, it was a blast for me. It was a great experience. I've known Will I've known you a little bit longer than Will, but through you have met Will Reese, and Will is just, he is just exactly who he is at all times. And it's what makes him such a magnetic personality, because he's the real deal. But getting to see that, I'd heard you all talk about the conference for years, but getting to see it, it's just, I think it's, it's a little bit like an American dream kind of story of somebody just saying, hey, me and my dad basically are going to duct tape this thing together. And then now it's become such a crucial part, such a crucial piece of the fabric of college athletics in so many different ways. And so that was probably the best part about it, was just getting to see all of the hard work from you and Will and so many others continue to come to fruition.
All right, you mentioned CALS, Graham. Let's go there. This is the CALS report after all. Both of you have been involved with CALS for a number of years. Graham, we'll start with you. I think you started coming to CALS almost immediately after getting into that role at ASU. How has the experience shaped your network and influenced your career and made a positive impact on your career development?
Well, it's a weekend I look forward to every year, and circle those dates as soon as Will shares us, when we're going and where we're going. Make sure to protect those dates on my calendar. And I really found tremendous value as a young administrator, in 2021 when I came back to college sports, of just really trying to get caught up. I spent 8 years in our department, and so I had a version of what collegiate administration was going to be, but obviously the landscape is so different 13 years later in the time I was gone. So CALS for me has been an incredible way just to get a current sense of what's going on in our sport, but more importantly to build relationships and rapport with people at all levels of it. And I can't think of a better 72 hours spent than being around people that want to collectively be a part of where college sports is going moving forward. And the environment now more than ever is so dynamic and so ever changing that it's important that we do protect time to be able to think and strategize and compare notes and build relationships, because we're the ones that have to figure it out. I think collectively as athletic directors, for those of you that attend CALS and that are a part of these settings, we're the ones that the world's counting on to get this stable and get this in a good trajectory. And we need time together. And Will and the team at Next Level do an incredible job of kind of bringing us together in the spirit of advancing for our industry, but more importantly, finding that time to enrich and invest in our individual journeys. And so I'm just super thankful for it. I've gotten so much out of just the relationships and the access. And I look back on my notes from CALS in Nashville, the first one I went to, all the time. And, people like Bjork, Troy Dannen, the two that I remember a lot of notes from those two in year one. And I look back on often, and they were right. And there's a lot of things that, I still take with me to this day that I remember listening to many years ago at this point.
Jeremiah, you came up in the CALS community, so tell me about the impact that it's had on your career and some of the things you remember from CALS along the way.
Yeah, from a personal standpoint, some of my best friends in this industry I met through CALS, and I can't thank Will and enough for him and the vision that he had, and I know other ADs were a part of it, but it came on at the perfect time in my career where I really needed that professional development and those connections to that network, not just selfishly as I was striving to become an athletic director, but just from a learning standpoint. I took so much away from those sessions that first year. I remember Wren, got me in last minute and I didn't really know anybody and he really took me under his wing, and I got to meet you and really have appreciated our friendship. And it goes a long way. I think we're all challenged with some of the same problems. But as Graham said, like, these are opportunities. We have a seat at the table now to truly impact the trajectory of our industry. And 10 years from now, hopefully it doesn't take that long, Graham, but 10 years from now, we'll look back and say, man, remember when? And to have that community that we have with an organization like CALS and people like Will that are just here to serve, it's priceless to me as an administrator and someone who's continuing to learn, this job and that transition from, when I first arrived there, I was a senior associate to then a deputy AD to now the chair. And I get just as much, if not more value now as an AD going to CALS than I did when I was a senior associate. Because then I get to talk to guys like Graham and Ross and all the, Mac and Hunter and all the great ADs that are out there. What you realize is everyone's challenged with the same thing. It may be different zeros, but the grass isn't greener. And sometimes when you have that unity and you can connect with people that way, it relieves pressure, because one of the things I've learned in this chair is that it's lonely at the top. When you're expected to know the answers and everyone's looking at you, and you have to handle that level of uncomfortableness and the expectations that come with the job, which we sign up for. I'm not complaining about it. There are many nights I sit in this office and I reach out to someone that I've met at CALS to say, hey, I just wanted to check in. I'm challenged with this, or just someone to talk to. And that means a lot to me.
It's like an all-star game. Like, the feelings is a little bit different as you're in there. Each person who's up on stage, who's giving a presentation on whatever topic, because Will does a good job of setting the stage for the type of vulnerability that's permitted in the room because of it being structured the way it's structured. It's like you're really learning the different moves or how you're going to perform when you get back on campus, like in the arena. So you see those old clips of Kobe talking to Jordan, or you hear KG talking about Kobe's first all-star game, or any of those clips and stories that you hear about. It's kind of like that. And then because people are accessible, you're able to get some tidbits to take back. And it's structured, but it doesn't feel structured. So each of those sessions, none of them are begrudging to go to either. You're right there ready to go, because you're going to get something tangible. And the All-Stars are right there, on the stage. So that's how it felt for me.
Frankly, it's been a staple of something I never try to miss, because it's almost like the culture of CALS takes on a different flavor than maybe some of the other professional development events. It's everybody's more open, more relaxed, more willing to share, and more or less give real talk in a lot of moments. And I look at the agenda and I get excited to see what else is on there and who else is on there, because just get to hear these voices and I walk away inspired, but also walking away feeling like, okay, we're all in this together. And I think these positions can be really lonely at the top from a leadership standpoint, and to have conversations with a whole bunch of other people. I tell my friends, hey, that means I didn't get left out of the group chat, right? I'm not missing the communication. I'm not missing a memo. We're all thinking and feeling the same things. And so CALS is family to me, and certainly always will be.
It's so critical, right, that we align with people that want to be around enlightened individuals and want to help you grow. And certainly I think the three of us take that to heart, and we do that in our own organizations. The importance of networking as you've grown in your career. And for me, and again, we're plugging CALS here, but were it not for CALS, I'm not sure that I'd have the network that I have today, because the vast majority of it is as a result of, now my almost 13 years of attending CALS and having authentic relationships with people with whom I've met over that time.